What's going on, guys? So today I am out here at Ron Hoover RV and Marine in Corpus Christi, Texas, and this is going to be an interesting video because, you know, when you're out there shopping for your first RV, you typically are kind of lost, right? You've visited the websites, maybe you haven't visited the websites actually, maybe you just went out one Saturday morning and you decided to look around an RV dealership lot to see if there's anything you liked. But typically it starts with a conversation amongst spouses or a family, trying to figure out if they should get into it, what they would use it for, and then trying to build the justification for getting an RV. And then after that, a lot of times it goes to YouTube. People are watching YouTube videos. What people should look for, what are good brands, what are bad brands, what do the different floor plans look like? And that's how a lot of folks probably stumble upon my channel. But a question that is often not answered is, when you finally make it out to your first RV dealership and you start walking around the lot, what should you do? What should you look for? What are some things that can kind of speedline the process to getting you from the process of looking to the process of possibly buying? That's what this video is all about. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so obviously Ron Hoover is both a boat and an RV dealership, so you're going to see a mixture of both all sprinkled out throughout this lot, as well as pre-owned units that are in here for service. That said, yeah, you get your way out to an RV dealership, you got the family with you, and you're trying to figure out where to start. First of all, what most people do is they'll find a salesperson, or a salesperson will find them, and then they'll start asking them questions like, how many people are in your family? Have you ever owned an RV before? What kind of tow vehicle do you have? What are you looking to do with the RV? Is it going to be maybe a work unit, or is it going to be pleasure? How often do you think you're going to use it? Where do you plan on going? How far out do you plan on going? How long do you plan on staying when you get to where you're going? These are all really, really good questions, and they do truly help sales reps kind of point you in the right direction. The sales rep's ultimate goal, well, it can kind of be mixed. They want to sell you a unit, but they also want you to be reasonably happy with the unit that they sell you. So they don't want to try to sell you something you're going to hate. In some cases, they may try to get a better understanding of what you're going to use the RV for, and perhaps try to inject a little bit of their own opinion in terms of what you should get based on what you think you should get. Let me give you an example of that. You might think that this tiny Viking Saga right here is the perfect price point and size for you to get started. And because of that, you've kind of ruled out anything larger than this Saga. So you just skip anything that's big and you're like, you know what, let's move to something small. And then the salesperson might actually tell you, you know what, you're going to want to look at the bigger one as well, because what you don't want to do is spend $30,000 on something like this when you could have spent $40,000 on something like this that you're not going to have to lose money and trade in for later. That's the key. It's that whole buy once, cry once mentality. If I buy this and I'm only kind of squeaking by with this one until I want to get something bigger, well, what if I just got something bigger right away and avoided the whole process of buyer's remorse, getting something too small, then having to sell it, losing that money, and then having to shop for something else. And believe it or not, just the process of transitioning from a smaller RV to a larger, just moving from one RV to another is like moving from a house. It can be a very, very big headache. But that said, a lot of times RV sales reps will try to kind of point you towards an RV that they think you might be happier with. This is where you have to be very careful though. Do you truly have the tow vehicle to be able to support the RV they may be pointing you to versus the one you're looking at? And some of this also comes into play with what truck you have today and if you ever plan on upgrading that truck. If you have, let's say, a half-ton truck today, but at some point in the future you want to get something a little bigger, well, you may want to say, okay, well, if we get the bigger RV today, will we have enough truck to get it to where it needs to go today? But then, you know, when we get the bigger truck, will we have anything to worry about then? So the thing you need to think about is not just what you're doing today, but what you might plan on doing a year from now, 2 years from now. A lot of people that get into RVing start with something really small because they feel it's going to get them more used to the RVing lifestyle, seeing if they like it, but then they find out they love it and then they opt to get something bigger, or they stick with what they have because they're so upside down on it, or because they financially can't get out of it anymore. So just think about that. What do you plan on doing today? What do you plan on doing later? Do you have the tow vehicle to tow what you need to tow today? Are you planning on getting a bigger vehicle? And if you plan on getting a bigger vehicle, what can that vehicle ultimately tow as well? What you don't want to do is get stuck with an RV that unfortunately is too big for your tow vehicle, because then you may never use it, or every time you do use it, you're going to find yourself in a situation of white knuckling it everywhere you go and just being unsafe overall. So very important things to think about. So what I would generally recommend is when you get out here, listen to what the salesperson says as far as showing you, other types of units, but go in knowing what you can spend. That's the key. A lot of folks get themselves upside down in an RV because they have a $30,000 budget. That is physically and financially their cap. They cannot go above that. But they're like, oh, well, if I stretch a little bit and get myself in a little bit more debt, I could get something bigger. It's only $10,000 more. If you feel you're at your financial cap getting something that costs this much, then why force yourself to get something that costs more? What you should do at that point is stick with what fits in your budget, but then also make sure you're looking at models that give you what you want for that budget. Let me give you an example of that. So you may look at, let me give you an example of this Hideout and this Jayco unit right here. They could be roughly the same size, but maybe this one has a floor plan that's a little bit more appealing to you than the Jayco unit. So you walk through them both. They have about the same price tag for both of them, but this one feels as if you get a better floor plan layout, but at the expense of amenities and features and things that you feel are important. Maybe it only has one AC unit, whereas the Jayco has 2 AC units. So you start justifying to yourself, where can I save cost by going to a unit that may be the same size, similar floor plan, same price, but you could tell they shaved cost off of this unit because they eliminated certain things. Now, maybe you get 2 ACs with the Jayco unit, but you don't get other features that this unit has. You have to start checking the box of the things that are most important to you. For me, down here in South Texas, having 2 air conditioning units is like critical. So for me, it would instantly cross out this unit. I wouldn't even look at this unit because it only has 1. If it has the option for 2, I'd have to figure out how long it would take to get it, what the cost difference would be, and does that cost difference make this unit spike above that unit in terms of price. But let's say the Jayco has lower end features, lower end amenities, just lower end all in general, doesn't have solar panel, any of that, but it has the 2 ACs. If that is a mandatory thing for me, then I'm automatically still going to gravitate towards the Jayco because it checks more of the boxes that are important to me. That's a key thing. When you're looking at RVs, you want to make sure that you're checking boxes that are important, that are relevant to how you plan on using the RV. Perhaps having dual axles is important to you. They make RVs this size that have 2 axles. Having the redundancy in case one tire blows out of another tire on that side, keeping it in place, might be important. So no matter what the sales rep takes you to, if it doesn't have 2 axles, I would check it off if 2 axles is important to you. But keep in mind, typically you're going to see 2 axles on a trailer because the trailer's heavier. So even though it may be overall the same size, the weight difference may be the reason why it has both axles. Because rarely do RV manufacturers just throw 2 axles on an RV just for the heck of it. There are a couple brands that do that, but it's rare. Winnebago's one of them. They'll throw 2 axles on an RV that don't necessarily need 2 axles, but most manufacturers will put 2 axles on an RV if it needs them. But that's something to consider as well. If you upgrade to an RV with twin axles, are you paying how much more for that second axle, and how much more weight is it going to add to what you now need to tow? When we talk about other features, such as like a power front tongue jack versus a manual tongue jack, these are things that can be very important as well, because believe it or not, that can get old very quickly. Now you can swap that out with a power front tongue jack, so that's not a very difficult thing. So when you see features like this, if you get caught on something like, man, I really wish I had a power front tongue jack, I'm only going to look at units with that, well, it's a very easy upgrade to move from a trailer with or without a power front tongue jack to one with a power front tongue jack if you want to. It just has to be wired up, but then you also have to factor in the cost difference of adding it in the aftermarket. But if that gives you the ability to get the RV you're looking for today, and maybe you budget for that upgrade later, it may be worth considering. There's other things that you also should consider. I know a lot of people love these front windows on their RVs, but what piece of glass on an RV do you think is most likely to break while you're towing it down the road? The front window. So as nice as it is, it's something you also want to kind of look at as, does it add more risk to my trip? And a blown out front windshield can be a terrible problem to have if something hits it, and it happens. A rock flies over the tow vehicle and hits that glass, and all of a sudden you have a big hole in the front of your RV that is very difficult to patch up. And because it's in the front of your RV, it's constantly going to have wind smacking it. So even if you try to put plastic things over it, it may be something that that is more difficult than you think to repair. But I only bring that up because you may have this perception when you come out to a dealership that I only want to look at RVs with front windshields. So you discount the fact that there may be a very similar floor plan with the stuff that's at the front of the RV actually being at the back of the RV, giving you a very similar windshield experience. Even though you may want that front windshield because perhaps your bed is right there, well, maybe you should look for an RV that has a rear bedroom with a window next to it. That way you kind of get the best of both worlds. You don't have to worry about the glass breaking as much, but you still get the view that you're looking for. So yeah, there's always a lot of little things that can help dictate and guide your path whenever you're walking on an RV dealership lot. The main things you want to do is truly understand what your RV is going to be used for. How many people are typically going to come with you? Is there enough room to comfortably house those people? Are you going to be spending the majority of your time in the RV or outside of your RV? Are you an outdoorsy person, or are you getting an RV because it's this luxury getaway on wheels that you can take somewhere and have all of the amenities from home? Or are you going to be out camping, biking, walking, doing all the things that you might normally do and just get back to your RV to take a shower, cook some food, and go to sleep? So those are things you have to ask yourself. And then thinking about how often you're actually going to use the RV is probably one of the most important things. But don't look at it from a best case scenario perspective, because likely you're never going to meet that best case scenario. Look at it from a, you know what your work schedule looks like, you know how much personal time off you have left, you know how many vacation days you typically take. How feasible is it for you on a Friday to get off of work, get your RV, get it prepped, take it out, go for a weekend trip, come back Sunday, get it put back away, cleaned out, and then go to work on Monday? And how many times are you willing to do that and enjoyably do it? Because the minute RVing becomes more of a chore than a recreation, you're not going to want to do it anymore. So these are things you need to think about before you get into it. I know a lot of folks who spend a lot of money on RVs. They spend $100,000 on an RV thinking they're going to use it more than they do, just to find out they've only used it a couple times each year, and they feel like they should have gotten something cheaper, smaller, more affordable, that they don't have to pay as much on each month because they felt like they would have been able to use it more. Or understanding now how often they use it, they realize they didn't need something that big, and they're paying a lot of money every single month towards something that just quite frankly is sitting in storage or sitting in a driveway not being used. So you have to think about that, plus the fact of how can you power use your RV. What is power using it? That is when you say the RV is sitting in the driveway or it's in storage, let's take it out for the day and return it. Let's just camp in it in the driveway. Let's just do something that, we can use it very quickly, then return it just so we can justify the process of using it. But then don't let those trips build up stress, because if they do, again, it's just going to be a regret. It's going to be something that you wish you didn't do. Anyways, I sure hope this video helps. The main understanding that you want to walk onto an RV dealership lot with is that you are looking for something you're going to enjoy using. As fancy as something is, you can get an Alliance, you can get a Pinnacle, you can get, a North Point, or a number of other really high-end RV brands. And if you don't use it, or if the process of setting it up, breaking it down, towing it, getting it to where you want it to be, trying to cram all of your stuff in it, cram all the people in it, if that's going to stress you out every time, then look for an RV that won't stress you out. Look for something that you're going to enjoy hopping in, getting to where you want to get to, minimal downtime, minimal stress, minimal frustration, minimal white knuckle driving while you're on the road. And opt for something like that, because financially it'll save you money. From a headache and stress perspective, it's going to save you a lot. And at the end of the day, you're probably going to enjoy it more. That's really what it comes down to, because that's what RVs are all about, recreation. It's a recreational vehicle. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment below. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.